Just a couple moments ago, U of L's head coach for the men's basketball team, Kenny PAYNE, is out.
I ain't scared of you, motherfucker.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to.
Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for. So listen responsibly.
It's the best of the best. It's the one and only DJ Ice, Louisville's coldest DJ.
Thank you so much. Good evening. I am Carl Price. This is Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television and Conscious Fever Radio. I am your host tonight. I'm here tonight with Paul Mullins. This is like a holiday for Paul Mullins because Kenny PAYNE has been fired. We have not yet pulled the footage where he said that Kenny PAYNE should be given some extra time early in the first season. He claims he didn't say that, but we didn't have time to get the footage together tonight. But anyway, for tonight, that's our subject. Our subject is this is our subject. This is our subject. It is this is Kenny PAYNE fired. Do you agree or disagree? This is Kenny PAYNE. Do you agree or disagree? Anyway, so as soon as we come back, that's what we're going to talk about. If you want to turn in, thank you. If you want to turn in and offer your comments for tonight, that is perfectly fine. You can give us your comments because we want to know. Because apparently somebody called in on the local TV station to rant and said that all the black people in the West End were upset because Kenny PAYNE got fired, and we don't mean to disappoint anybody, but we're not. A lot of us are not upset. And Teresa Booker, if you say you do not agree, Teresa, if I remember correctly, I think are you in Lexington? You may not be in Lexington, but if you're in Lexington, we understand why you like. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back from this quick break, it's going to be very, very quick. We're going to dive right into this. Kenny PAYNE has been fired today. Do you agree or disagree? Carl Price, Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. I'll be right back.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price. You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
All right. Hi. We do a lot of talking here when those promotions or banners or commercials are on. So, kind of caught me off guard. Anyway, I'm Carl Price. This is Conscious Fever. You're listening to us on Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio, and all those places you saw on that banner: Spotify, Mixcloud, YouTube, Facebook, 2 pages, yada yada. Anyway, we're talking tonight. Kenny PAYNE fired. Do you agree or disagree? We want to hear your comments. Looks like we have one comment. This is just going to start us off. Take us to the comment board real quick. Let me see what we got there. Says, no, I disagree. Okay. Teresa Booker disagrees that Kenny PAYNE has been fired. But that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And I really want to hear your comments because to me, this seems to be a no-brainer. Tonight, my guest and co-host is attorney Paul Mullins. How you doing tonight, Mr. Mullins?
Good, I'm good. It's a no-brainer, just like you said.
What? It's a no-brainer?
Yes.
Is that what you say?
No-brainer. Uh, 12 wins, 2 seasons.
You gotta speak up, Paul.
12 wins in 2 seasons.
Yeah, bring your mic closer to you. Not too far. Okay, there you go.
12 wins in 2 seasons ain't gonna cut it. It's not
12
gonna.
wins in 2 seasons ain't gonna cut it. Is it okay?
And
Um,
it's the people defending him probably did not watch the games or go to the games. So
no, say that again, Paul.
I said
think I missed.
the people who are defending him probably did not go to the games or watch the games.
Did you go to the games?
I watched the games. I did not go. I haven't been to U of L game in 2 years. I think I went to one last year when we were in our 4-win season, 1 or 2.
Oh, when there was a 4-win season, you
Yeah.
went.
I went to 1 or 2.
But you didn't. So okay. So wait a minute. So you didn't go to any of the games last year at all?
I said 1 or 2.
1 or 2. Well, tell us about it. I mean, I didn't go to any. I didn't go to any, and I'm not sure. I'm not going to tell you that it was because of Kenny Payne. It was just every time I had the opportunity to go,
We developed
something came up.
we developed a pattern.
Except after about the third or fourth game.
We developed
Not
a
just having
pattern
a whole lot.
of being in the game and then just getting blown out for some reason, either in the middle of the game or at the end of the game. There was always a period where it was just like, okay, when are they gonna let it go? And it just always happened, and it's every single game. It doesn't matter if you're playing North Carolina or North Carolina Community College. It always ended up that way, and I don't know how to explain it other than he didn't. And it's hard because we all like Kenny. Kenny was a national championship team. He was in like 86 national championship team. We all like him. We all want him to win. It's not like I'm rooting against Kenny. It's just I can't watch U of L basketball. If Kenny were not the coach and he was watching U of L basketball, he would feel the same way. And I wish there was a reason or an excuse that said that I had faith or we all had faith that he would turn it around, but there was no faith. Which brings me back to the comment that you made to start your show off that somehow or another last year, at the end of last year, I said we need to give him another chance.
You just really want this battle, don't you, Paul?
Bring the smoke.
I mean, you really want this battle. All I'm saying is that my mind, which is not as sharp as it was when I was 21,
True.
but my mind, I'm not going to keep taking a lot of shots from you tonight. But listen, but my mind suggests to me that at early in the season last year, when I said, and I wish we had the footage, when I said I don't think Kenny Payne is the one for this job. And this was after that team. I'm not sure what the team was, but it was a small college team here in Kentucky. Remember, Paul, we were having lunch across the street, and
Right.
we saw these basketball players out touring the city. And you could tell it was a smaller school that was happy to be in a bigger city, saying, I'm playing U of L tonight. And that night they blew U of L out.
Right.
Right?
Beat
And
the heck
so,
out of
and
us.
after that, I said, I just don't think that he's the coaching type. You said, oh, that's too soon. You got to give him a shot. You gave him a shot. Now, 2 years later, I know you disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. But 2 years later, here we are.
Fine.
And it's all turning out to be exactly the way we thought it would be. So let's just talk to everybody as before we get to the comments. Let's take us to the comment board, and then you're gonna have to expand the comments when you put them up there too. Let's go to the first one again. Let's go to the first one. So this person, Teresa Booker, says, no, I disagree that he was gone too soon. And Paul, you obviously disagree with her.
I mean, if she can't understand that if you're on a job and you don't perform, that you get fired, I don't know what to tell her. Sorry. I mean, I don't understand how people can say we win 4 games and 8 games and any coach deserves to stay on the job. It isn't about liking him. It's not about whether he's black or white. You gotta have. What's going on?
So this next comment is from DJ Ice Price. Hey, DJ Ice Price, I agree with PJ. They should have given him at least 4 years. I don't think PJ agrees with that.
Hey, Eric,
DJ Ice.
I didn't say that. I'm saying the exact opposite, Eric. I'm saying you got a 2-year deal and that's it. You got to perform. I mean, we don't win 12 games in 2 seasons. If we had I keep saying this, and I think people need to understand this. We fired Denny Crum. I know people don't think he got fired, but we forced him out. Does anybody remember what Denny Crum's last season record was? Do you remember, Carl?
I do not, but it was not as
He
bad as
had
Kenny
12.
Payne.
He had 12 wins, and we fired a legendary, got rid of a legendary coach for
He says,
12
"No,
wins.
PJ, you're a wrestler, man."
My eyes don't deceive me though. I saw what I saw.
Right, and DJ Ice then says again, "I am on the other side of Paul."
Oh, okay, that's more like yeah. So you still so DJ, you still think Kenny Payne deserves to be here one more year? And so are you prepared to watch another season of U of L win? Let's say he improves from last season, win 12 games next year. So 4 wins, 8 wins, 12 wins. Where do you see in this coaching ability that he can take a team with less talent and make them better than they are? Because that's what coaching is about. And I don't want to sit here and monologue. I'm gonna let you get more comments, but Carl and I had this discussion at lunch, and I said to him, if you see Sky Clark play in the last game of the season, balling out, scoring 30 points, doing the best he can, and you saw early in the year where Tyler Johnson balled out and played the best he could and was really great for the game, it's the coach's job to get the most out of players in every single game.
So listen, here's a comment from Clifton Kraft. Put that comment from Clifton
I
Kraft
know Clifton.
up. He says, "It was time for him to go,
Right.
but the next coach won't win at the beginning either. We have to get someone who can get better players." But Clifton Kraft, my question to you, take it off first. My question to you is, what about the coaches who come with players, right? So let's say if this fella from, is it Baylor that they're talking about? If
Yeah.
this fella from Baylor comes, players are going to follow him. But I'm not sure if you're suggesting, Clifton Craft, and I'm talking to you now, I'm not sure if you're suggesting that Kenny Payne had bad players. Because, Paul, you don't agree with that, do you?
Oh no, we argued about this left and right, and I challenge you all to go look at Kenny Payne's recruiting class. We looked it up. At one point, he had a top 6 recruiting class. Now that included Karan Davis, who never got to play for whatever reason, but he had a top 20 recruiting class. And all I'm saying is, if I get a top 20 recruiting class, and I'm coaching at the University of Louisville, and I've got the ability, funds, uh, uh, you know, I want to say notoriety, but I don't have to say notoriety. But if I'm at U of L, I shouldn't be getting beat by Bellarmine. I shouldn't be getting beat by the low level schools. You got to beat the teams that we're supposed to beat. That's Kenny Payne's problem. We didn't beat the teams we're supposed to beat, and he's only won 5 games in the ACC in 2 years. 5 games in the ACC in 2 years. You're not competitive in your own conference. He can't do it. And I know people want him to do it because we all wanted Kenny to succeed, including myself.
Here's
We all
another
wanted him to
interesting
succeed.
comment, Paul. Check this out. It was about wins and losses.
That's what it's
Too
always
many
about.
losses. If he had one more year, he would need more shooters. This program has been in shambles for the last 4 years. No one wants to come here.
I disagree. I disagree. I strongly disagree. Don't say that's the loser's mentality to believe that our school, no one wants to come here. It's not like we've had top, 5 recruiting classes all those other years. Denny Crum had some great recruiting classes, but he had some classes that weren't so great. He still won the games he was supposed to win. That's a very low bar to just beat. Give me some of the teams we played this year. I'll pull up the schedule. Just beat the teams you're supposed to beat. I don't need you to say, well, he didn't beat North Carolina, so we fired him. We're not doing that. But you can't lose to Bellarmine, who pays their coach. Our coaches.
Yeah, the school I was talking about earlier was a school not as good as Bellarmine at all.
Or LaSalle or something. We pay our coach $300,000 a game or something like that. Okay, maybe it's 100, whatever it is. We pay him $100,000 a game, and that coach gets
Right.
paid $10,000 a game.
Hey, Paul,
Just pick him up.
Yeah, we are getting commented to death. So we're
All
going to go back to some of the comments. So here's Rico Ware. He says, guys, it's all about the shoe deal. Open up the money chest. Nobody can argue that. What do you think, Paul?
It's all about the shoe deal. So I've heard from former players, at least one or two, that Kenny Payne's problem was they didn't give him enough NIL funds. But what I say to that is, Kenny Payne is here as a coach. He can't just stick his hand out and say, hey, alumni, give me money. He's got to go out and he's got to sell the program not only to the players, but he's got to go sell it out to the people who are donating money. So Kenny Payne's problem was he got here on campus. He said he was going to do a lot. He said, I'm going to need y'all to help me. And then he disappeared. When he first got here, he just disappeared, didn't go out and get money from people to try to, sell his program. It's almost like he got here and said, well, I'm here, give me the money because I'm at U of L.
We got somebody that agrees with you, Paul. I agree with Paul. We should beat them teams that we should beat like the smaller schools and D2 schools. Absolutely.
It's no excuse.
Top players didn't want to come because of the black cloud of the investigation.
Okay, so everybody keeps saying that. I want everybody to go to 247 Sports. Listen, I ain't promoting another website on your show, Carl, but just go to 247sports.com and look at Louisville's recruiting class last year. I showed Carl that earlier. He didn't believe me. But just go to 247sports.com and look at U of L's recruiting class last year. All right? And you'll see we were in the top 10 in recruiting. The players that we have on our team, Huntley Hatfield at one point was a 5-star player. Don't give me this, we didn't have players. We had players. We just didn't know what to do with them. Stop drinking the Kool-Aid. I feel sorry for him because I like him. I don't feel sorry for him because he didn't perform. That's not fair to say. Why should a coach? Do you have a list of who the teams we played this year and last year? Because we can just go down the list. The coaches who were on that list, you can't tell me they out-recruited Louisville. The teams we lost to. I mean, I can't even think of the names of these schools. They were directional schools without any clout behind their name that beat us. They didn't out-recruit us. So that comes down to coaches. It's just, stop making excuses. You saw it with your own eyes. We weren't very good, and it wasn't because we didn't have the players. If Sky Clark can score 30 points in his final game, the coach should have motivated him to score 20 points a game every game.
If you play good, they pay good, period. That's what DJ I said. So here's the question, Paul. So here's the question. It's one of the comments.
Got a good point.
I saw one of the comments there, and it sparked me to think about this question. Now I have totally forgotten it. But what do you believe, Paul, NIL had to do with this?
So, going to Eric's comment, I don't know if I believe this or not, but basically, if players are feeling like they're not getting paid enough to perform, maybe that slows their performance, but I don't want to believe that's the case because otherwise if we just truly go into the realm of pro basketball, essentially, I guess you have to pay players more money to get performance out of them. Screw that. I don't believe that. I mean, I'm looking across the landscape of college basketball. I don't believe that Louisville is ranked 300 in NIL money. Yeah, but that's what we're receiving on the court. So I think people are, and Eric, we went to school together, man, but I think y'all are just looking for excuses. The man couldn't coach. If I had video, I remember sitting in my living room talking to my son, putting the game on pause and pointing out how deficient the players were on the court. Not because of their skill. They just didn't know where to go. They didn't know where to be. That's coaching. You can take 5 guys off the street and run them out to play basketball. Me and Carl had this discussion. I don't care how good the 5 guys are. If they're not well coached and they're not operating as a team and they're not operating knowing what each other are doing, they're not going to beat a good college basketball team that's well coached. They're just not going to do it. Because one thing pickup basketball does, you don't learn how to play team defense with pickup basketball. You just kind of, everybody plays one-on-one by themselves and everybody man for themselves. But when you're coaching a team, you're teaching teams how to play together as a defensive unit.
True, but he didn't come through, but it was only 2 years.
Huh?
I said True, but he didn't come through, but it was only 2. He said Kenny didn't come through, but it was only 2 years.
Then I
So,
want somebody to tell me what they saw in 2 years that tells them that Kenny Payne is a good coach. Tell me one thing that Kenny Payne did that you could
well,
say,
then some may ask the question of you, Paul, what did you see that made you think that Kenny Payne was a bad coach?
"Oh, I'm glad you asked me that because I got a list." Okay, I remember in year one,
You said you got it.
I do. I remember in year one, I was watching a basketball game, and I've demonstrated this before, where I saw players standing outside the 3-point line, not being a threat to the other team. So what do I mean by that? If you're outside the 3-point line and your back is to the basket, and someone's defending you, they don't have to defend. Oh, sorry, my sound. They don't have to defend you. And what you see from the U of L players, it didn't happen this year. I do agree that they improved some of the things they did, but I saw that a lot last year, and I'm like, you have to coach those players that at all times when you're on the offensive end, you have to present yourself as a threat. And a lot of times we have players dribbling the ball away from the basket with their back to the basket. They are no threat. And so I would tell people, I remember, Carl, when I told you, I said, watch a U of L game and see how much our offense makes the defense move. Did you remember when I told you that?
Yeah, I remember that. I have 3 things that troubled me with the Kenny Payne era. Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Paul? His routine post game of
Right.
non-accountability and
Right.
blame game excuse and became completely
Mm-hmm.
nauseating, actually 10 times worse than Rick Pitino. Number 2, non-effective coaching staff. You may have to write these down because we're going to comment on all of these. Non-effective coaching staff, come back. Non-effective coaching staff of college basketball misfits who seem perplexed, confused, and speechless.
Right.
This speaks to lack of organizational leadership, which is Kenny Payne's job.
Right.
And the fact that this program hit rock bottom in the ACC, which is the first in U of L history. Giving Kenny Payne 1 or more year would have been devastating, not only to fans who have, by the way, given up, but would have driven our downtown economy deep into a rabbit hole of destruction, come back, causing the Yum Center to eventually file for bankruptcy.
Right.
Yes, 2
He's not
years to
wrong.
me is more than enough for Kenny Payne.
He's
As
not
a
wrong.
Cardinal fan since the early 70s, Cardinal basketball became depressing to watch. This comment is from John Miles. You're not going to take the blame for that?
And again, I ask you, if you still support Kenny Payne, point to one thing that Kenny Payne does well.
Different.
One thing that he does good. What does he do good? So he brought up I don't even watch the press game conference because I've never watched them because there's nothing I even wanted to hear from him. But again, he doesn't do the post game press conference or the pre-game press conference. He doesn't tell us what's wrong with the team. He doesn't tell us, why we're not winning. He just has the same excuses. So he doesn't do the press well. When you look at the X's and O's on the court in the last 2 years, where have you been able to identify and say, hey, Kenny Payne's a good coach? That was a well drawn up play. No, it doesn't happen. Okay, does he recruit well? Well, he's had an opportunity to get, all these players that he says he's going to get, but every single time we lose him to schools like UK. So he's not a good recruiter. He was at UK, but we lose all the good players, DeJuan Wagner. Who else was we? A couple players. We lose them to UK. That's not good recruiting. What does he do well? Does he get a good staff? No, because they sit on the sidelines. I would hate to be on this staff right now because you're not getting another job. What are you doing?
Okay, so I have seen this a couple of times, and so I'm going to ask you this question because we all know this guy here locally, Scotty Davenport. Local, highly successful in basketball coaching here from high school down to Bellarmine. Has taken Bellarmine to a couple of Final Fours in Division II, and now I think Bellarmine's in Division I now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what about Scotty Davenport? I know we talk about the Baylor guy, but what about Scotty Davenport?
I'm not sure about the replacement. I'm not going to tell you right now. I can name a lot of names, but it's only because I've read what people say. I'm not in the spot to say we should have this coach with definitive purpose and say, oh, I know what I'm talking about.
I mean, but
I would
isn't
just be
that
guessing.
exactly what we need, Paul? I mean, because it seems that Kenny Payne came here without that. So my question is that don't we look at a coach like this fella at Baylor, and we look at the fact that, Baylor was not in the same class at University of Louisville 10 years ago, right?
Right.
I mean, they had all those Texas schools had a hit and miss in terms of, even making it into the tournament. But now Baylor. This guy goes to Baylor. He turns it around.
Carl,
The question is, I suspect, is that these coaches that the University of Louisville is looking at now, is it a situation where they're looking for coaches who didn't have the characteristics that Kenny Payne has?
I feel like this is gonna sound bad. I like Kenny. Y'all gonna think I hate Kenny. Y'all gonna think I would never root for Kenny, or I'm some kind of racist in black skin. But I believe the next hire will do this. He will beat the teams on our schedule that we're supposed to beat, because every coach at U of L has done that. All right. So when we look at our worst football coaches, right? We had the coach that I can't even remember the name for, Crackthorpe. What was Crackthorpe's downfall? How do we know Crackthorpe was a bad coach? I'll tell you how. We had a game against like Tennessee State, and we let Tennessee State score 70 points on us. We knew right then and there, right at that moment, he was 2 games into his tenure, and we knew he's going to be a bad coach because he almost lost to a team, and he beat Tennessee State, but he let them score like it was a ridiculous score. I can't even remember the score, but it was a ridiculous score, and he let this little team from nowhere come in, score a lot of points on us, but we won the game. But we knew right then and there, Crackthorpe couldn't coach. So that's how I see Kenny Payne, and I like Kenny Payne, but we know our eyes are not lying to us.
Yeah, Willie said you hate Kenny Payne.
Look, my eyes. I don't hate Kenny Payne. I just dislike the fact that people keep making excuses about why we're losing when our eyes are not lying to us. We know bad basketball when we see it, and you can't. It's not just bad basketball. It's the whole everything is just off.
Okay, so
It's everything. It's not just bad
Okay.
X's and O's. It's everything.
let me ask you this question, Paul. Let me just pose this question for you. Is it, did you see something the first 3 games of last year? Remember they won that first game, the first or did they lose the exhibition game last year? I think they won their
We were
exhibition
barely
game.
beating teams we should have.
Okay. So on the 3rd game of
An
last
exhibition.
year, what was your thought?
I don't remember.
But was it positive or negative for him to stay or go?
The 3rd game of last year.
3rd game of last year.
I didn't see I didn't see him as a Crackthorpe then, but by the 12th game, by the time December came, I was already on the he can't coach. So unlike football, it took a couple games, like 12 games in, I was like, something's wrong here. And this year, I had hope for this team this year when we came out and got 80 on Texas. We all had a little hope.
Is there a black cloud over the University of Louisville
No,
basketball team?
there's not a black cloud over the University of Louisville. We had a
Why
bad
do you
hire.
say that?
We just had a bad hire. Because what is that he did? The last game that we played where we did really well for the first few minutes and then lost it at the end of the game, that's kind of indicative of how we became. Now, maybe you're saying give him another year and we'll suddenly jump the hurdle and start winning those games. I guess. But compared to last year, this year's team was better. This year's team looked a little more organized. But that's on the job learning. And Kenny didn't have that space where he'd never been a head coach and he gets to learn on the job at U of L. You don't get to learn on the job and say, I lost 48 games in 2 years and get to say I get a do-over? I don't actually blame Kenny. I've always blamed Josh Hurd for hiring him. You hired a guy with no experience, no hit. You didn't even let him get his feet wet at a low-level college to at least learn how to coach. You threw him. It's like taking a toddler and throwing him into a race car. You didn't give him a chance. Not even 1 year at some other
Danny
school.
Carruthers from Bowling Green says, I personally feel that Kenny just was not ready for a program like
Right.
the Cars. I think UK put so much money in Kenny's hands, he was able to go get
Right.
any high school player in the country, and the Cars did not. What do you think about that?
I'm gonna have to agree with Mr. Carruthers because he did compare us. I remember one interview where he compared us to UK, and I did not like that. But he uses that as a crutch. Well, we're not UK. We can't get their players. Screw you, man. Go find another school. I know you're a U of L grad, but don't you know better than to compare us to UK and say that they're better than us. Like, even if you think that, you don't say that out loud. No U of L fan does that. And so but Texter's right. UK did get all our recruits. He recruited head to head with Calipari and lost the recruits. Wagner was supposed to come to U of L. We hired his grandfather, Milt Wagner, or somebody. We hired everybody we could to get him, and then he turns around and goes to UK.
Yeah, I mean,
That's just,
Wagner's grandson didn't come here even years before. So he
wasn't the only one that they sprung a camp like that.
So I mean, what do you think Kenny Payne's flaws were?
Carl, I said it and I keep saying it. It don't matter how many great recruits you have. If you cannot put them on the court and make them beat the teams they're supposed to beat, you're not a good coach. I'm going to pull up the schedule. You're going to have to come back to me because I'm going to have to go back to last year's schedule and show you how bad it was.
No, I understand how bad it was, but earlier we were talking about, we had this discussion and you were convinced that U of L has good players. They simply have a bad coach.
We lost to Chattanooga. We barely beat by 1 point University of Maryland, Boston College or something. University of Maryland, BC. I don't know what that means. It's some community college. We beat them 94-93. Now, why are they scoring 93 points on us?
University of Maryland, Baltimore campus is what
Thank you.
Kenny Payne inherited a stripper pole with no strippers. And seriously, seemingly, this program would need to hit a home run on a coaching hire. So I'm going to piggyback off of that.
Lost to Wright State.
I get that.
App State.
Yeah.
Lost to App State. When did
Appalachian State. I guess. Listen, but here's
Texas Tech beat us 70-38.
Okay, Paul. You are whining over the fact.
I'm not
He's
whining.
gone.
I'm just saying people need to recognize you forget what happened.
As the song says, Paul, he's gone.
I'm not whining about that. I'm just saying people forget what y'all
got
forget
to
what
learn how to face it. He's gone. So listen. So my question to you is looking forward. Just looking forward.
Okay.
What is the best fit in a coach for the University of Louisville under the circumstances now? They don't. Oh, hold on. Let me finish my question. They don't have a lot of money. This is now 4 or 5 years deep, and anytime you have a situation where you're firing a coach, players are going to decommit, and the NIL situation. You got the transfer portal and all of that. Should we be looking for a coach who can bring everything on the first day?
All right,
the recruits, the talent, those may be one and the same.
I'm trying to keep up with your question. So you talked about the NIL issue. You talked about the what does the coach bring? So let me answer your question. I was trying to keep up with all three of the points you made, but I couldn't. Sorry, I'm getting old. But the type of coach we need is a coach that is going to make, and this is going to sound weird and it's going to sound off, but the coach needs to energize the fan base because that's going to solve.
But don't you do that with talent?
That's going to solve the. Let me finish.
And winning the game.
That's going to solve the issue. He's got to energize the fan base from his name recognition because that is going to energize.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that.
That is going to energize the NIL because if you get somebody where all the fans are like, yeah, we like him, we want him. Just like when Rick Pitino came, if NIL were a thing, people would have just started. That's Rick Pitino. He says we need money. We're going to start donating. We're going to start showing up. That's
Speaking of Rick Pitino, why not just bring Rick Pitino back?
That ain't work. All right.
No. And I understand you believe that it's not going to work, but but why not the University of Louisville admit, and I know everybody doesn't agree with me, admit that they made a mistake in letting Rick
We
Pitino
can admit we
go.
made a mistake, but if you want to move on and go forward, then that's not moving on and going forward.
Well, but moving on and going forward is bringing talent in. You don't think Rick can bring talent back in?
I think Rick's a heck of a coach, but I don't want to feel like he's the only coach we can get. So
under the circumstances, Paul?
I mean, when you say under the circumstances,
we just talked about April 1st. If they had waited April 1st, they would have saved $2 million.
Right. But when you say under the circumstances, it can all be cured with a hire that energizes the fan base. What is the thing that Kenny Payne is really getting fired for right now? If we were still you got that graphic, if we were still putting people in the stands, whether Kenny Payne was losing or not, and people were still supporting the program, and people were still like, hey, we're going to turn this around, and we were putting 20,000 people in the fans, and people were just mad, but we're still making money downtown and all that, Kenny wouldn't be fired. People like, give him 1 more year.
Okay,
So you got to bring somebody in who's going to bring money
Right.
with them, and money brings the recruits, and money brings wins.
Okay, so speaking of which, there's a video that we have in reference to I think it's iPad number 1, in reference to the economic impact downtown. Take a look at this, and then let's comment about it.
Poor attendance at the Yum Center this men's basketball season meant less money for U of L and less customers at downtown businesses on game days.
In the 12 seasons that we've been down here, it's been easily the slowest men's basketball season that we've had.
Says game day revenue was down 60 to 70%.
My customers, they're just, they're disappointed like the rest of the city, and they just want to have a good basketball team.
This is a good restaurant. We all want to gather here and watch the game or go to the game itself. And if the Cards are not doing good, it's going to take our attention and make us go somewhere else.
It's a shame people didn't show up for him, but I know how it is. It's hard to show up for a team that's not performing the way you want them to.
This year, under men's head coach Kenny Payne, the average game tickets sold for a home game was just over 11,500 people. But the number of scanned tickets per game was much lower.
Wow.
Compare that to national championship year 2013 under coach Rick Pitino, when the average attendance was 21,571 fans. When you factor in the lost revenue in tickets, along with concessions and parking, that's a lot of money lost. But U of L says they haven't yet calculated the exact amount for this basketball season.
All right, so hold on, Paul, before you make any comment about. Well, first of all, the economic edge is always playing in the background, right? I mean, and that's what you and I talked about. That the University of Louisville, this new administration that came in, missed it altogether. They thought they can just come in and get rid of Jerry and get rid of Rick Pitino and still pay top-notch professors. Come to find out that a lot of that money was coming from the basketball program and a lot of the other athletic programs. But I've got I see a comment that I think that, let's get this comment here. Here's the comment that you've been waiting for, Paul, and here's what it says. It says, the racism here in Louisville, Kentucky is ridiculous. We deserve to be a trash program for a while. So Damon Beasley, many folks on the radio protested him before he was a coach. Economic impact is a lie. Concerts have had a 100% increase. They had a full campaign to fire Kenny. So it sounds like Damon Beasley is bringing in the race issue. Do we have a race card here?
Oh, okay. So Damon, do you remember a coach by the name of Ron Cooper? Because I do. He was a black coach for the football team, and we supported him until he went 1 in, I think his last season, he was 1-10. I went to those U of L games. I was at the last football game of his tenure. Not because I loved him and I supported him, I wanted to keep him. Just because I was a U of L fan, I had season tickets. I went to the last game. It was like 8,000 people there. And I ain't playing. Out of a stadium at the time that held 40,000 seats, we had 8,000 people there. You cannot sustain a program, whether it's a black person or a white person or anything, when you're not bringing in the revenue. You don't bring in the revenue, your program dies. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. You can't let your program die. This is not a race issue. And you can say, well, the white people didn't show up to support him. Guess what? I was there. I didn't see a whole lot of black people there either. So even the black people's like, we ain't watching this mess. So when something's a mess, people are not going to support it, black or white. And this ain't a black or white issue. He just didn't win enough games. Now, whether,
you said money brings recruits, and earlier he said he can't coach. Just say it was
both.
A bad hire.
It's both. I've said that. It's
okay.
But
you hear that, Rico? He said that.
But it was a bad hire because Kenny, and people are like, well, they were against him from the start. Kenny didn't have any coaching experience. He was an assistant coach for 20 years. What people need to realize and what they need to accept is Kenny was a hope and a prayer. He had no resume. That's not a slight on him, but he had no resume to say this guy can coach.
So race is not an issue here. He just couldn't coach. He's just not qualified. He needs affirmative action to stick around, pretty much, right?
Whether he was an X and O's coach or whatever, I just can't sit here and say Kenny does X, Y, Z well. I mean, when you think of Rick Pitino, Carl, What's one of the things that comes to mind about a Rick Pitino game plan? What did it used to be?
We all know what it used to be. It used
Pressure,
to be
right.
energetic, pressure, cussing at the players.
Right. And if you screwed up on Rick Pitino's team, were you held accountable? Did he pull you out?
Of course. And that was some of the things that we observed with Kenny Payne. Kenny Payne was actually pocketing timeouts as if he could trade them back in for money.
Right.
You know, and no, I mean, seriously, right? I mean, you agree with that, Paul, right?
I was pointing out, I said, why do we have 4 timeouts left at the end of the game?
You know, you have all these timeouts, and it's just like, so I haven't given my whole opinion yet, so I'll give my whole opinion now. I thought early on that Kenny Payne was just not the man for the job, and I've never coached basketball like you, Paul, but what I saw was really disconcerting because, and I think Willie Aiken made this comment earlier. Listen to the press conferences. I remember Kenny Payne came in after almost towards the end of the college football season, right? And it was Deion Sanders' first season. And I listened to all of Deion Sanders' post-game press conferences, and they were so positive, in my opinion, but you also saw the head coach taking the blame for the loss. Kenny Payne, in my opinion, was the exact opposite. Kenny Payne, what we saw in his post-press conferences was that these guys don't listen, they don't want to play, and all that negativity. I don't think that really helped the team.
But the players not listening and they're not paying attention. That's on you, coach.
Right. Because he rises to the top.
Tell them, look, if you don't listen and pay attention, I'll put my son in and let him play point guard. I don't give a damn. I can lose with anybody. I don't have to lose with you.
But this comment, it was just a tough situation all the way around.
It was not.
So you disagree with that. Willie Aiken says that it was a tough situation all the way around, and you disagree.
I disagree.
But let me just say this: assuming that you agree, my question is, even if it's a tough situation, isn't that what you get head coaches for, to come in and deal with tough situations?
If you didn't want the job because it was too tough, then go coach Bellarmine. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get the excuses. So I'm going to, because I'm tired of, Carl, I'm tired of this, and I'm looking at my phone right now. So I'm going to last year's recruits, and I have to point this out today. Last year's recruits, 2023, ranked overall by Recruiting Services, the 6th ranked basketball recruiting team in the nation. Quit saying the players weren't no good.
See, I don't listen, Paul. You can tell us that it was the top 5 recruiting class and all of that.
That's all
that came to the University of Louisville. But here's the problem.
That's all you can go off of.
Right. But here's the problem.
I mean, if you got the top ranked recruiting class that's ranked number 6,
but it sounds as if
y'all gonna win the national championship.
But it sounds as if you're taking
you had the best players.
It sounds as if you're taking the blame away from the head coach because he rises to the top. And I disagree with that. First of all, I saw those guys play. Now, this NC State game was very interesting because you saw a player, I think it was Clark, right?
Right.
He got like 33 points or something like that. And the question became, where was that all year?
So I got an answer for you. Kenny never put his players in the right spots most of the time. What did I say early in the year? I said, when I saw Tyler Johnson do very well at point guard in the middle of the season, where's he been? Why hasn't he been our point guard? Why has he been on the bench? He's a freshman, cool. I get it. But Skylar was a transfer, I believe. I said to you, Carl, he should be our 2 guard. Skylar's not a point guard. So along with that 33 points, guess how many turnovers Skylar had?
I mean,
he had 6. You know why he had 6?
I was told this years ago, never hire someone you can't fire.
Hold on. You know why?
We'll come back to that comment.
You know why he had 6 turnovers?
Why did he have 6 turnovers?
Because Paul Mullins would not have put him at point guard. Because he's not a point guard. You got the kid doing something that he ain't designed to do.
But what about the blame game during the post-game press conferences?
I don't even know what to say because I didn't watch them, so I don't care. I didn't care who he blamed. Even if he blamed himself, it wouldn't have helped. Even if he said this is all my fault, I suck as a coach, I'm like, you're right. It wouldn't have helped me make it any better. You would just be stating what I already knew. You're not putting I'll tell you, Carl, Do you remember at the beginning of the season, he had Dennis Evans and Huntley Hatfield in the game at the same time for like the first 5 to 10 games. And I said to you, I sent in a text, Carl. I said, he should not have those two players on the court at the same time. They can't play on the court at the same time. About 10 games in the season, he stops playing them at the same time. I mean, these are things as me, as a layperson, just watching the game and saying, they're not working together on the court at the same time. You're a head coach of a major basketball team. You should know these things. You've got your best 5 player playing as a around the perimeter, and you've got a tall 5 player because you want to run a double high post or something, and these guys can't function on the court at the same time. Also, in our last NC State game, we were ahead because you asked for the reasons why I think he sucks, or why he wasn't any good. We were winning the game, Carl. We were winning the game, and he put 5 guards. If anybody watched the game, he had 5 guards in the game at the same time. What team can win without even trying, to have a post player? It didn't. And you can say, well, he didn't have anybody else to play. Okay, I get that, but I don't know. But something went wrong in his either maintaining of the team or whatever. He had a lot of injuries. I get it, but I'm not making no excuse for that. You just can't have a situation where you let a team that you're beating go on these 20-0 runs. How many times this season did we just get blown out where a team just went on a 14, 20, some odd, strange run, and then the game was over? So I posted on Facebook. I was like, oh my God, I know Eric saw the Facebook post. I said, oh my God, what team is this? And I had one of my high school friends' mothers post the real team, something to the effect of the real team will show up soon enough. And that's what happened. Eventually, they would just overtake us. And I remember when it happened, it was when we put 5 guards in. And I'm just like, these are coaching mistakes. And if I, as a layperson who gets paid nothing to coach basketball, can spot these mistakes, any coach that comes in after Kenny will do well. Mark my words. You can play the tape, write it down so you know the tape. The next coach that comes in will double Kenny Payne's wins. Maybe not double, but at least get 12, 13 wins. Maybe double. No, I'll just say it. Double Kenny Payne's wins. And everybody say, oh, it's because he's got Kenny Payne's players and he didn't give Kenny Payne enough time. No. Quit thinking that, people. It ain't got nothing to do with that. It's about making your players be accountable for the things you ask them to do. It's about the repetition of having them learn your offense. And it's about making them work harder than they've ever worked hard before. And Kenny Payne didn't make people do that. I couldn't see it. I know too many stories from behind the scenes. The story behind the scenes, according to a quote-unquote source of mine, was that the players played really well in practices, but when the game time showed up, they just didn't play as well as they should have in game time. And I'm just like, okay, I'm hearing that. I don't get that, but if that's the excuse that the people are using or saying, why is that an excuse? That I have my players, they look really good in practice, but we get in the game and we suck. I often wonder, Carl, and I know it sounds like I'm doing all talking. This is your show, but
this is my show, but you can do all the talking.
Did they ever watch film of the other team? Like, did they ever know how to stop people from shooting 3-pointers? I mean, how many easy layups did you see over and over and over?
Well, but hold on, Paul. So this is now you sound contradictory, man.
How am I contradictory?
I gotta say that you sound contradictory.
How am I contradictory?
Because either it's the coach or it's the player.
Carl, once again, you can have great players, but if you just take the best players and throw them out on the court with no organization, they're gonna lose.
Right, but if you are a talented player, I'm gonna challenge you on this. If you're a talented player, it's almost like Steph Curry, right? He was at Davidson. And it didn't matter who was around him.
But you know what
happened?
He shined
like a light.
He did shine.
I'm not buying the narrative that...
No, that's a good example.
That these are great players, man.
He did shine like a light, but it's because the coach put him in a position where he could take the good shots. I mean, the coach didn't say, hey, this guy's a good shooter. Don't get him the ball.
He was the only shooter at Davidson at the time, by the way.
But if we got Scott Clark, who can shoot 3-pointers...
Aren't we really talking?
Let me finish my point. If you got Scott Clark, who's our best 3-point shooter, and we didn't have a good 3-point shooter, why would you put him at point guard where he has the pressure of handling the ball all game then having to shoot after that?
Because I suspect that Kenny Payne was trying to find a niche. and he was running, and that's what coaches, and we expect coaches to do that. Say, okay, something's not working here. Let me just switch some things around. Maybe he made mistakes in switching those things around. But maybe what we're really talking about, Paul, is just the clash of two horrible things. Not so great players with not so great effort. They may have been great players, but if they're not given a great player's effort,
I'm making excuses.
No. But listen, well,
do you think Krzyzewski ever had a team where his players didn't give maximum effort?
I'm not making excuses, Paul.
Do you think
that the players were great? They were the 6th best recruiting class in the nation. So if that is the case, why are you now talking bad about the players?
I'm not talking.
I'm
not talking bad about the players.
Either the player, but
I'm
let me just make this point. I'm gonna let you continue to take over my show.
Well,
what I'm going to say is that maybe what we're really talking about and what we're really trying to figure out is the fact that there was a clash. You know how it is in Mars, right, or in the galaxy when these things clash, all these stars clash together, right?
Uh-huh.
So you have a program that is trying to come back. That's a disaster. Then you bring in a coach who is not so good. That's a disaster. And the players, although they may be talented, because I doubt that there is any D1 player that doesn't have some talent. They may be talented, but they lack the effort because of the coaching. And when you put all of those together, then you have a disaster where nobody's coming to the Yum Center.
So do you think, and I asked this question, do you think Krzyzewski ever had a team where nobody gave maximum effort?
Yes. Okay. I'm sure every coach had that kind of team.
You think Krzyzewski had a team where the Duke players didn't give effort?
Paul, just be careful how you answer. No. Be careful how you ask the question. Because the question that you're asking is that a team, but you're implying that team did not give the effort all. My answer to you is this, is that every coach had a team where they had a game where they didn't get the best effort. And we saw it when University of Louisville Rick Pitino was number one overall in the NCAA tournament, went out to Seattle and lost.
I'm not talking about one game. I'm talking about a team for the whole year.
I think it's hard to find those types of teams unless you want to say that U of L just had those teams the last 2 years with Kenny Payne.
I mean, if you can coach and you can put players in a position to succeed, you're a good coach, period. I can't sit here and say, I'm not going to go back and look at Rick Pitino's teams, but I know Rick Pitino didn't have top 10 talent every year at U of L.
But he's a better coach. He's a good coach. Good coaches bring out bring the best talent out of mediocre players.
Okay, so if he's a good coach and you got another coach who has a top 6 team but can only get 8 wins, what do you call that coach?
I missed that.
If he's a good coach who can get the best out of mediocre players, and you got another coach with supposedly a top 6 recruited team, what does that make that coach if he can't get 8 wins?
Which coach?
Do you understand what I'm talking about?
I understand what you're talking about. Which coach are you talking? You asked the question about the coach that
you just said Rick Pitino was able to get the best out of mediocre players. Now, I'm not going to call those players mediocre, but if that's the case,
he had mediocre players.
Okay, but if that's the case, what do you call it? And that's because he's a great coach, is what you said. You said he was a great coach. So what do you call a coach who has a highly rated or highly recruited team but can't get 8 wins out of them?
Just to answer your question, I would say that's a bad coach. Okay, but still, I don't think that Kenny Payne had a North Carolina or a Duke class the last 2 years.
Okay, well, that's what the recruiting services thought.
Well, I mean, but who? It's just like these damn polls that said Hillary Clinton was going to beat Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was going to beat Biden in 2020.
You're making excuses.
I'm not making excuses. I'm just giving you an analogy.
Okay.
Because what you're saying that just really doesn't make sense.
I go back to my examples. Do you think Chattanooga had better players than U of L? Do you think
on that night they did?
Okay. On
that night?
Okay. Do you think they beat Louisville? Do you think the University of Maryland at BC or whatever you call
Baltimore College.
At Baltimore College had better.
I'm sorry, at Baltimore College.
Had better recruits? Do you think Texas Tech had better? Do you think Bellarmine had better?
Paul, listen.
Just going down the list of all.
No, you can go down the list of all of those.
And all you said is on that night.
No, Paul. No,
they
hold on.
had lesser players and beat us.
Paul.
I mean, that's what you're saying.
Paul,
they had lesser talent and still beat us.
Paul, I think that school thought that they recruited the best players they could. So I'm not going to call them better players or lesser players than University of Louisville. the reality is they came here and they beat the shit out of U of L.
Correct.
Right.
I'm just saying,
So I'm
blame
not
it on
sure
the
if they were necessarily bad recruits.
I'm just saying,
All I'm
blame
saying
it on
is
the
this.
players.
All I'm saying is this. I think the clashing of those three was really the disaster for the University of Louisville this year. And then you've got in the background, you've got this economic impact, and you got to understand
That's
that
big time.
the Main Street is accustomed. I mean, 60 to 70%. Can you imagine that in your business, Paul? If next year your revenue is down 60 to 70% for 2 years in a row,
Right.
you're gonna be driving a cab, right?
Arkansas State, did they have better recruits than us?
Paul, I'm not going to answer that question
No,
because
because the
your
answer is pretty
criteria
simple.
for a better recruit and a worse recruit
Okay, I'm
is
just saying.
and a
I'm
worse
just
recruit
saying.
is different from mine.
I'm just
I
pointing
think
out
Arkansas State believes that they had better recruits.
I'm just pointing
So
out.
I can't
I'm
really
just
answer
pointing
that
out
question.
that y'all are making people who like you are making excuses for our performances. I'm looking at the teams that beat us.
I'm making excuses.
I'm looking at the teams that beat
I
us.
know
and I
why.
question,
I
did
know
they have
why
better
we
recruits?
underperformed because the coach was not as good as we thought the
Pittsburgh beat
coach
us.
was.
Pittsburgh beat us 91-57. Miami. Okay, we almost beat Miami. I remember that game. Virginia beat us. Clemson. Clemson lost. Okay. So we got all our. So wait a minute. Is this right? We got 5 wins before December. So we only got 3 wins after January when we're supposed to be traditionally getting better. That's terrible.
Hey, Paul.
No, I'm finishing my rant. I'm sorry.
And that's okay. You can rant all you want. I'm just gonna say this to you, man. I'm gonna say this to you.
Coppins.
I think Coppin State.
We beat them.
We beat Coppin State.
Yeah, by 20. Yay.
But here, at the end of the day, we asked the question: Kenny Payne fired? Do you agree or disagree? And I think right now we all agree that this is probably the best time to let Kenny go.
I think we all
I
disagree.
agree with you that anybody who's crying racism, I'm not. I'm not. I mean, just look at the man's record. I mean, the man didn't perform, and we can say that about every coach. But how much time do you give a person to go out and get the recruits? Because really, the talent is not bringing a coach here, or the measuring test is not bringing a coach here and then watching how that coach those players when they get out there, right? The talent of a coach is half the talent of a coach is the ability to recruit good players. Now, good players are not necessarily those on the top 100 ESPN list. Good players are
Fit your
players
system.
that will come here, give their all in all, and have a good coach that would bring that minimum talent out of them. And we see that a lot in the NCAA, and we're going to see it a lot in these next few weeks, right? We're going to see mediocre players that you never heard of shining in the NCAA tournament. That's because they have a coach that says, "Hey, listen, I am going to instill in you that you can. I'm going to give you all these aspirations that you can actually beat this Duke, beat this North Carolina, beat this UConn, beat this Houston, beat this Marquette, because those are the top teams. Beat this Purdue. That you're going to beat these teams, and you can do it, and you continue to motivate them to train at their best, because a mediocre player has to be in the best shape to be a better player that is in the worst shape, right? So all I'm saying is that I believe that everything, we can all say this because we run our own small business. Heat rises to the top. Period. Heat rises to the top. So Kenny Payne has to take the heat regardless. But we have had the opportunity the last 2 years to examine him firsthand. And I just don't think, I think that he's best positioned on the bench at the University of Kentucky.
Let me just dovetail on that for two quick points. And that is, at the end of last season, when we had our 4-win season, I called in on a radio show, the drive, the little afternoon drive. And I said in my comment to close the show, I said, I don't have faith that even if we got a top 10 recruiting class, that we'll do any better. And so the example I give of a coach turning players into something that they were never expected to be is, we had a coach here named Charlie Strong. And I know that everybody thinks Charlie Strong got the best players and everything. We had top 10, top 20 recruiting classes. We did not. Charlie Strong turned the players who were, 4 stars and 3 stars into pro players. And the best example of that is a guy named Bilal Powell was a 2-star recruit, maybe 3-star at either running back or I think he was also recruited as a defensive back. He turned that player into a pro player. I remember when he first got here, he said Bilal Powell is going to turn into a star, and everybody was just like, "Who? What? He barely played. Like what?" And then Bilal Powell went on to set a bunch of records at U of L. So I saw a Charlie Strong interview, and Charlie Strong said that he motivated Bilal Powell by telling him that he saw him in a game in high school where he was the most outstanding player on the field. And he said, every time you play, you need to be that player. And Bilal Powell went on to play in the NFL, play for the New York Jets. But that was a player who was a very low recruit that Charlie Strong turned into the best player he could be.
Right. Well, Kenny Payne ain't Charlie Strong. Okay. No. And of course, we wish him the best, but I don't know how much wishing we should for the best with him. I mean, he's walking away with $6 million. He's gotten eight total, but he's got $6 million more to come, right? So, listen, I just think
he's walking away with $8 million. If we had fired him in April 1st, he would only get $6 million.
Okay, well, whatever it is, it's a lot of money.
But you didn't even touch on that. Like, why would they pay him?
Well, I mean, the university. Why is the University of Louisville doing anything? I mean, the AD, quite honestly, is a piece of shit. They should have kept the AD that they had there before. He has no. I don't think the AD has any idea what the hell he's doing. He's just trying to keep up with everything. The president. Maybe the president this time has some idea. But again, and I like that comment because the real impact here, and I don't think any of these colleges prepared for this except the Alabamas and the UKs, because they were probably doing it anyway, is this the impact of NIL. It's harder to get more, it's harder to recruit, right? Don't you agree? The NIL is making it.
Yeah, because now you got to pay the 12th player on your bench when you're really just playing the top 2.
Right. And the 12th player on your bench just maybe, so at the end of the day, I think the University of Louisville is doing the right thing. I agree with you that if you could save $2 million and you got a money crunch, why not wait this thing out a month? It's not like he's going to play any other more games, right? Because they're out of the.
Well, they better have somebody that they're hiring or afraid is going to get away before April 1st, because that would be the only explanation.
Well, I think that there are some coaches out there. I think the coaches that are out there. I think, just like John said, 2 coaches don't coach the same. I think that there are some coaches out there for the University of Louisville program. I really do. And unfortunately, we have to probably miss that coach because we're looking for the coach with the bang. Like Billy Donovan would definitely be the bang, right? He's coming from the NBA. He definitely would be the bang.
Jay Wright.
I don't know about Jay Wright. I know you talk a lot about Jay Wright, but Jay Wright, I don't know about Jay Wright. I think Jay Wright recruits very well up in the New Jersey, Pennsylvania area, very, very well. But I've never heard of Jay Wright recruiting, California players or Dominican Republic players or.
But he was a good coach.
He is a good coach.
You can't think of any.
I'm not saying that he was a bad coach. He's a pretty good coach, pretty good dresser too. But I just don't think that he's the fit for the University of Louisville. I think that what the University of Louisville needs to do, if they want the program to come back in about a year and a half, what they need to do, as best they can, they really need to get somebody with the bang, somebody whose name can,
his name transcends
Mike Krzyzewski, right?
Yeah, like name transcends.
He's available, and he came here. He's bringing a suitcase full of 5-star players, right? That's what you need to do.
Somebody whose name almost transcends the university.
Paul does coach. Willie Aiken said, "Paul, you should coach."
I did coach.
He did coach. Did your team win? What was your team's record last time you coached? Just tell us the record, because just for the sake of time.
I don't remember the record.
Oh, that means it was really bad, Paul.
No.
That means it was really bad. Hold on, man.
You want me to tell the story?
No.
Let me tell the story.
No.
Don't cut me off.
The question didn't ask for a story. The question asked for a simple answer. What numbers?
The last team I coached had a losing record. Hold on, but that was in my 6th season. When I got to the
losing record.
Listen, when I got to the school,
Willie, you hear that?
Shut up. You know the story. That's why you cut me off. You don't like to hear it. When I got to the school hadn't won a game in 3 years.
Paul was Hold on.
Come like this. When I first got there,
but you gotta see this comment.
Okay.
Willie Aiken says, "Paul, were you fired?"
No. No. I quit because I couldn't motivate myself anymore to make the team win.
But you were able to motivate the team.
I was, except the last year. And when I didn't have that energy to motivate the team, I said, I'm not doing y'all any justice. But the year before that, I won a championship. So I didn't have that energy and that drive to.
Okay, so Willie, so maybe we should be looking at Paul Mullins. He won the championship.
2 of them.
2 of them.
Yeah. So
maybe
the
we
story,
should look at Paul.
story I was going to tell is I was at a school, low elementary. It was a school full of nerdy white kids, and they hadn't won a game in 3 years.
There's some mixed black kids there. I can include them too.
But I'm saying generally. So when I first got to the school, we won 1 game. They were excited because they won 1 game. I said, that ain't good enough. I said, all you little 4th graders, go home. Y'all better practice basketball season because if y'all think 1 game is the top, y'all crazy. They came back the next year. We went to the championship game. We lost in the championship game. But ever since then, we established a pattern of we're not going to lose at this school.
Well, this is ridiculous, Paul. I'm hearing this story, and what are we? I mean, you can actually see the Yum Center from your office.
I can.
And if you had all of that talent, why didn't you just go down to the Yum Center a block away and share that with Kenny Payne? You have motivated 4th graders. It takes a lot to motivate 4th graders.
4th and 5th graders, yeah.
4th and 5th graders, because they're because they are their level of distraction is like 90%. So that's good. I don't understand why you didn't just walk down to the Yum Center and talk to Kenny Payne.
Shut up.
Tell D Webb, hey, look, man, I want to meet with Kenny Payne.
D Webb coached in that league too. He was a good coach. He coached at Stouffer. But the thing is that if you're making a joke about 4th and 5th graders, but the mentality
you can't talk about Kenny Payne anymore.
Listen, you make a joke about 4th and 5th graders, but the mentality is the same, which is you have to motivate those players to be better than what they are. And I'm not saying I'm some great person or great coach or anything, but I had to take that job seriously because when I went 1-8, instead of saying these kids suck, I literally, and I tell people the story because it's the God's honest truth. I literally spent all summer studying how to train kids to play basketball.
Hey,
because
John,
it wasn't just me going out there and saying, well, I know how to play basketball. I can teach them. I just studied that all summer.
Hey, John Miles, this one's for you. Do you agree or disagree with Paul? I want to see your comment.
On which part?
Make a comment.
Disagree.
On everything. Because I'm looking at John's comments, and it's just like, I'm done. And I don't know what he's done for. Okay. Dude, elementary. What else you got to say, John?
Look, I never...
Okay, no, listen. Hey, John, maybe you should just take him at the next frat meeting. You should just take him and sit down and talk to him.
I never sat here and said I was a college coach. In fact, I even told you the exact opposite. What I said was...
You said elementary. They got it.
Right. But I'm saying I never said I had the skills to coach a college coach. But I know bad basketball when I see it. No, I mean, y'all agree with me. It was bad basketball.
No, it was bad basketball. But no, Paul, I agree with you. I think that somebody...
You have to motivate your players.
Somebody who can motivate 4th graders and keep them from being distracted with the candy cane and the ice cream cones in the stands. I mean, I think that's talent. I think you're talent. I think you should go get your name on the list, bro.
Shut up. I'll tell you this.
Anyway.
No, I'll tell you this. When I ran for judge...
When I ran bad noob. He said bad noob. He's not a bad noob, John.
When I ran for judge...
He just went to the University of Kentucky.
This is a good story. When I ran for judge and I was in a room full of other... I forget the name of the group. There were people in the audience who remember what I did to that school. And it almost brought me to tears because I never knew that in that little community where that school was, that the people in the neighborhood really thought that was a big deal. Because that school never won any games.
But Paul... the point here is that the shining light here is that I really do believe, and I'm not joking, I really do believe that anybody who can convince 4th graders to pay attention to the game and win. I think that's some talent. I'm not saying that you're at the level of U of L, But I'm just saying
What I
that
did
there's
was,
talent. And hold on, let me just finish my analogy. My analogy here is that that's what we need. That's what Kenny Payne lacked, was the ability to motivate these players to go out there and say, listen, I want to win. I want to give my all. And when I didn't see that from Kenny Payne, and you didn't see it transmit into these players, it's a done deal. It's just a done deal.
I took that team to the city championship, and they got.
Won't stop,
We,
Noop, LOL.
I mean, we went to the city championship, and this was a school that
Uh-oh.
when I got there hadn't won a game.
Okay.
And I ain't saying it was all me. I had some great assistant coaches with me, a lot of parents involved, but they know what we went through.
I don't understand. I mean,
They know what we went through.
I think Derek
Transforming
Smith is a very, very talented coach. I don't know why. I mean, I really do think he's a very, very talented assistant coach, and I just don't.
Is it Nolan?
Yeah, Nolan Smith. I still give. But anyway, listen, Paul, we are way beyond.
At the end of the day, we know good basketball.
Last comment.
We are U of L fans. We know good basketball when we see it. Period. Flat out. And even if we saw our team lose, we also saw more disturbingly. We saw teams score 90 points on us on a regular.
Yeah. It was almost like every team that came to the Yum Center was
score
like,
90.
We're just gonna run the score up and we're just gonna win. But U of L will be back. University of Louisville basketball will be back. I don't know about the Yahoos out there making the decisions, but University of Louisville basketball will be back, and they'll be back on top. So I can't wait to that time.
Without picking a coach, what do you predict next season?
What do I predict?
I predict double the number of wins.
With the different coach?
With the different coach.
What you're saying?
Double the wins, yes.
Okay. So, but in any case, so here we are. So we have to now we have to get out of here. So, Paul, listen, thanks for joining me tonight, giving me the opportunity. So I can see the bottom. Giving me the opportunity. L1C4. Yes, John Miles. I agree. Listen, thank y'all for joining me out there. Thank y'all for joining us. I mean, because this is, I don't know if y'all know this, but every day when Paul and I go to lunch together, because we're both lawyers in the same building, this is what we do every day at lunchtime, right? We just don't agree on everything. When one grew up in St. Matthews and one grew up in the West End, it's never going to be.
He said, so stupid.
He said, damn. Anyway, listen, I'm Carl Price. This has been Conscious Fever here on ICE Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. I will be back next week. Thanks for joining us. Please have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Good night.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price on 97thebeatfm.com.
Follow me on Twitter at DJ Ice Louisville and on Instagram at DJ Ice_Louisville. For bookings, DJ Ice Price 1 at gmail.com.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it is. Then I go to my brother. And I say, brother, help me please. But he wind up knocking me back down on the knee. Oh, there've been times that I thought I couldn't last for long. But now I think I'm able, Father, to carry on. And it's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it is, yes it is, yes it is. Said I know that a change is gonna come one day. I know a change gonna come.